What's up guys, it's Jonathan. Welcome to another For the Window video. Today I'm going to be going over how I got a Bluetooth audio setup in my Subaru Sandbar with some new speakers. So if you're interested in actually being able to listen to your own music and stream it in a Kei Truck, stay tuned and I'll show you how I did it. It's nothing crazy, but it works for me and hopefully it'll help some of you guys out. Alright, so this is basically the gist of it. And it does look pretty stock and I'll tell you why. It's actually a early 2000s Outback or Legacy head unit. So what that means is you can actually plug it directly into the Subaru Sandbar wiring harness and it works perfectly, and you get FM radio bands. So the reason that's important is that the Subaru Sandbar and I think most other Kei trucks come with just the Japanese band radio head unit. So it comes with AM and the Japanese bands. So you can get transmuters or whatever and change those bands, but I found it just easier to get an old US spec Subaru Legacy or Outback head unit, which already has the FM bands and it still uses the Subaru wiring harness. So, all right, so before I actually take everything apart and show you how I did it, this is kind of the missing piece that completes the whole puzzle. And it's just one of those FM radio Bluetooth adapters. So I can connect my phone to this and it goes straight into my new FM bands that I have in the Subaru Sandbar, hence giving me Bluetooth music from my phone. So I've seen some people who want to put the speakers in the doors, and while this is not that hard to cut a hole in, I'd rather just keep it in the stock speaker locations, which are right here on the right, and then there's another one all the way over on the left. So the Subaru Sandbar and most Kei trucks I think will only come with one speaker on the right hand side, just because the stock head unit is just a mono audio, so they only really need one. But with the Subaru Sandbar, at least, it does come with a perfectly usable speaker grill and hole that you can put a speaker in. So it's not like they just didn't have a spot for it. They just only included one from the factory. So luckily that makes our job a little bit easier. So as you can see, the speaker grills here are not that hard to remove. There's just two Phillips head screws on the bottom here. So I'm gonna go ahead and take those off and show you how I got the speaker in. All right, so this is what my speaker setup looks like. Obviously, I was not able to actually use the bracket that came with the speaker, so I'd recommend doing a little research and finding some speakers that actually fit correctly, and I'll try to include some resources as far as that goes in the description. However, this does work. I just kind of put some washers and clamped it down. So it holds in there, but it's not ideal, and I would recommend trying to figure out a better way to do it. I'm sure there are a lot of people smarter than me who can figure something out. You can basically see I just ended up splicing the wires from the new speakers right into the right speaker, because there is wires for a right speaker in the Subaru Sandbar. It's the left speaker that you would have to actually create a whole new cable, then run it through the dash, but it's not bad. Yeah, so funny enough, that's actually the more difficult part of it, was trying to figure out how to get my speakers to stay in the holes. But now we'll move on to the head unit and show you how you remove that and how you can install a new one without that much difficulty, hopefully. Yeah, so like I said, this process really isn't that bad. You just have to get this bracket around for the single DIN head unit. So I'll show you how that pops off. It's not that bad, and then we'll actually get into the screws you need to take out to take the head units out. Yeah, so I basically just use a flathead screwdriver or something even thinner to pop the clips for this bracket out, so you can just remove it and get to the head unit screws. Ta-da! That's out, so now we can actually have access to the Phillips head screws that hold the head unit bracket in. So hopefully you can see this, but there's actually just one screw there and then a screw back there on each side. So those are just what you need to remove to actually pull the bracket out of the dash. All right, so yeah, with those 4 screws removed, it's a very easy process of just lifting up and back on the head unit and just kind of removing it fully. With the stock head unit, there should be some cables back here, so you'll want to remove that and remove the radio antenna as well, but neither of those are that hard to remove, so it's not that bad. Now, obviously this is my new head unit, but as you can see, the connection right there is the exact same as the Subaru Sandbar stock head unit wiring harness, which is this. I didn't actually have to use a new bracket at all. So the only thing you'll have to add is some pins for the left speaker, since the stock wiring harness does not have the pin inside the connection to actually accommodate a left-hand speaker. But I'll link in the description to some pins that I found that work. They're not perfect, but as you can see right in there, it is able to actually wire in a cable that makes the left speaker work. So it was actually not that bad at all, and a lot easier than I thought it would be. Now this is where if you wanted to get a fully separate Bluetooth head unit that doesn't actually mount in perfectly with the Subaru head unit, you'd actually have to splice all these cables into the new connection for the new head unit, whereas if you use a old Legacy or Outback connection, you can just use the stock Subaru, but obviously you'll get more functionality off of a brand new 21st century head unit. But I found this way to be pretty easy and works for what I need, so I haven't done that yet. I'll also link a wiring diagram that helped me. You don't really have to change much of anything except for adding that left speaker wire, but it is nice to know what each wire actually does with the stock wiring harness. So check the description for that if you're not exactly sure which wire goes where when you're building the harness again. All right, so as you can see with the left speaker cable, I kind of just routed it back behind and under the glove box over to the left speaker. So it's not bad. There's tons of room up under everything. So luckily there's nothing that you really have to take off to cable manage that. I just kind of stuck it up there, and then you can tape it or zip tie it up there if you want. That's really the only cable you have to run to get to the left speaker, and you have a fully functioning stereo setup. So once you have the pin and the wire for this left speaker installed into the wiring harness, all you have to do is put it in the new head unit, just same way as you remove the old one. They're not very deep at all, so you end up with lots of space behind the head unit to stuff cables or anything that you're working on back there. So it ends up very nice. I almost forgot to mention that you do have to remove this bracket from the old head unit and put it onto the new one. However, it should basically fit any head unit with the screws. So you just have to do those 2 screws, put that side of the bracket on, and put that side of the bracket on, and it should slide back in, and you can just use the stock screw holes. This is really the only part that I'd recommend having 2 people, just so one can make sure that the radio holes are lined up in the back, and then you can just slide a screwdriver in there and screw it in easily. You can do it by yourself, but it ends up a little bit of a more frustrating process. All right, so I finally got these screws back in, and now all is left is just to put that little plastic bracket on, and you'll be good to go. There's nothing really complex about it. Just make sure these are in there and the bottom, and then these front clips will just clip up under the top. All right, so all that's left is to turn your key or turn the truck on and see if you get power to your new FM radio head unit. So we'll tap that, and as you can see, I'm getting FM radio dials, and then obviously I'm not tuned to something that actually works, but if you do, then you'll actually have a radio station, which leads us to the final part of this whole puzzle, which is this little FM Bluetooth radio adapter. So luckily the Subaru Sandbar does come with a 12-volt outlet cigarette lighter style. So that helps a lot with accessories, because you can just get any number of these cheap FM Bluetooth adapters on eBay or Amazon. The only thing I had to do was my cigarette lighter was a little bit rusted out, so I had ended up taking it out of the truck and cleaning it up before the contacts on the 12-volt adapter actually worked. But once I did that, as you can see, if I plug this in, I get power, and that allows me to connect my phone via Bluetooth to that, and it works perfectly with the FM radio channel that's on the head unit. All right, so at this point, just grab your phone, connect it via Bluetooth to your FM radio adapter, and you can test out your new speakers and setup. All right, so as you can see, I have my FM radio dialed to the frequency that I have on this FM radio adapter. I can push play on my phone, and I've got stereo audio from the speakers in my truck, and they're not quiet. At this point, just make sure that your left and right speakers are both working. If not, you might have to adjust the pins in the connection if you did it that route, or obviously the wiring to either speaker. Make sure you have the polarities correct, just in case, but it should work, and you should have a nice stereo audio in your truck. All right, so the last piece of the puzzle, which is kind of a bonus, is my friend did give me a Spotify car thing, which actually makes this whole setup even more future-proof. So it kind of acts as a media control, as if I had a more touchscreen head unit, but I really just have like a 2006 Outback head unit. But now I actually do have media control. Obviously this only works if you're using Spotify, but it is a little bonus. I'm not sure how available they are anymore, but it actually is a really cool addition, which turns this whole setup even more into a futuristic, or well, more modern day solution. So yeah, this does work. However, some people might say, oh, you're losing quite a bit of audio quality from transmitting over FM with Bluetooth, but you gotta keep in mind that these trucks, once they get up to 40, 50 miles an hour, The wind noise and road noise makes it so you're not really going to have the high fidelity audio that you want, even if you are able to do it. This works more than well enough. I don't really recognize any difference just because the road noise makes it so I couldn't notice even if I wanted to. So to recap, if you want all the functionality of a new, more expensive Bluetooth head unit, this is a great option. It does what it needs to do, and it keeps the stock look of the Subaru dash because it is a Subaru head unit. So I definitely recommend giving this a shot. It definitely changes the experience of a Kei Truck. It allows you to listen to music, and it actually sounds pretty good. So if you have any questions, check the description, see what resources I have linked down there, but definitely reach out. I'm not an expert by any means, but I have struggled through this process to get it to work how I like it, so I should be able to answer some basic questions that you might have about the process. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed Sandbar Sunday. I'll see you in the next one.